I hope everyone can hear me. I'll wait for a few minutes before I begin. Okay, so before we start with the topic for today, I'd just like to tell everyone that this is the last Instagram Live for this month that Girl Up Glow is organizing. The theme for us has been zero tolerance against sexual harassment and violence. And over the course of the last month, over the course of August, we've spoken about some very important topics like whether rape is gender neutral and about the trauma of harassment. And the topic for today is marital rape, and collaborating with us on this topic is Bharat Girl Up. So I'll just add them in.
Hello. Hi. Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Namaste.
Namaste. How are you doing?
Fine. Absolutely fine.
Okay, that's good. So before we begin with the topic, I'd just like to give a trigger warning to our audience because we'll be talking about marital rape. So I would just like to say that at first. And if it's okay with you, I'll give a brief introduction of the topic and then we can begin with the discussion. Okay.
Sure.
So the topic, as I said, marital rape, giving a simple explanation of it is, a sexual intercourse between a married couple where one of them hasn't consented to it. So one of them is unwilling to partake in it, and yet the activity, sex has taken place. So in the Indian context, in the Indian law, Section 375 of the Indian Penal Code does recognize rape. But there is an exception to this law which exempts married couples. So it says that if a husband rapes a wife and if the wife is above the age of 18, then it will not be considered a crime. And earlier this was actually 15, and there was an amendment that took
15.
place after which it became 18. So Mudit,
Yeah.
would you like to begin? What would you like to say about this?
Definitely. So, beginning with the simple concept of crime. Basically, what is crime? So, crime is something which is there over two pillars: consent and intention. Right? If I talk about the consent, then the clear example of the consent is the theft. In the theft case, what we do? The culprit, let's say X is the culprit and Y is the person. X went to Y's home and he, without Y's consent, he took Y's property and take it over to his house. So that's the clear example of theft. So here what we find was that consent is very important, right? Now the second part of the story comes this intention. So giving you the example of intention from the murder. There is a person X and there is a person Y. So Y is hidden in the bushes, right? And X, he knows that Y is there under the bushes, but he knowingly, intentionally fires the bullet over the bushes and Y gets killed. So that's an example of murder. So that categorizes into intention. So here when we talk about rape, so in that case also we see the consent part of the case and we see the intention part of the case, right? And specifically moving towards the marital rape. So since you clearly mentioned about the definition, so not having the consent of one partner, right? So that, like I would say, there is the consent part is being neglected. Now comes the intention. Comes the intention part. So the intention of the victim and the intention of the person who is committing rape. Either he is the husband. So that his intention, what is exactly his intention? Because if I talk about our country, so not only our country, but 36 other countries are also there
Yes.
where there is no marital, like it
There's
is
no
not a
law.
crime over
There's
the
no law
unfit
which
person. Yeah,
criminalizes
there
it.
is no law. Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned about the exception under
Yeah.
section 375. So that is the exception number two. And
Yes.
previously there was 15 years for the marital rape cases, but the case which went very viral in Supreme Court, and because of that case, it goes around
Yeah.
15 to 18. But if
Yes.
we see the reality, the practicality, so we could better be understanding that 18 years में तो I guess 10% of the population is there, those who get married, right? Under the age of 18 years.
Okay.
आपकी maximum of the
Huh.
population, like except the child marriage,
Hmm.
maximum of the population get married after 18, right?
Hmm.
So if I see in that case this law, so I find it very funny that this law doesn't hold value, right?
Definitely.
The 15, yeah, the 15 one and especially the 18 one.
Yeah, I just feel like the Indian laws are very confused about this because it doesn't make sense,
Yeah,
like you explained. And I think one of
yeah,
the
yeah,
aspects, like while we're beginning with this discussion, we should focus on is what exactly the person who has, underwent this crime, the victim, what she goes through or what this person goes through. I just feel, the kind of mental and physical trauma that they face, and adding to this, there's no recourse in the law for them. So the kind of toll it takes on their body and their mind is something that is beyond unimaginable. Like it's like the post-traumatic stress disorder, all the other mental impact they have, the physical injuries, if any, if they face. And I just feel, oftentimes it's said, it's very hard to prove rape because if there's no physical evidence, it's not rape.
yeah,
That is not the case. That is definitely not the case. It's not just about what happens to that person physically, but also the emotional toll that the victim has gone through is also definitely something worth taking into consideration. So, what do you think about this, about
yeah,
the
yeah.
mental effects of this?
See, I will be telling you the journey of a girl from the time she gets into her husband's house, ससुराल जिसको कहा जाता है, and
Hmm.
till the time she goes into the hospital. So वहां तक condition क्या होती है? So see, when the girl is married, she comes to the house of her husband. So what the Indian society mentality is that girl is solemnly the property of that house. उस घर की वो प्रॉपर्टी है, एक इंडिविजुअल नहीं रही वो, अब वो किसी की वाइफ है, अब वो किसी की बहू है ना, अब वो दे सी दैट गर्ल एज दैट मटीरियल, दे डोंट सी दैट गर्ल एज एन इंडिविजुअलिटी, दे
Yeah.
सी दैट गर्ल एज ए मटीरियल, एंड देन पूरा हक जो होता है, I would say 60% of in the families, they try to monetize over them financially, mentally, giving them freedom to express their views, including the husband and including all the other family members over there, right? And when it comes to marital rape, so first of all, the male of the family, the husband, so their mentality is that they have total control over
Yeah.
their wife or that female, right? So
Hmm.
controlation part is there because of this patriarchy society, or I could say the orthodox mentality of the society and the individuals, right? So once that thing occurs and that girl is being raped in the marriage, right? Now the step comes in to speak. The girl her their their parents and their like the husband side family, they try to pressurize that girl that don't do this, is very normal, तुम्हारा घर है, ससुराल है, रिश्ता
The
टूट
concept
जाएगा,
is very
divorce.
normalized.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
assumed that it's
very
okay.
normal. Yeah,
So,
yeah, they say that, yeah,
you very well
they
brought
consider
all the
it.
reasons out. So I think going
Yeah,
one by one, first is implied consent. Like it's assumed that if somebody is married, if a girl is married to
yeah,
someone, or if anybody for that matter is married, it's assumed that sexual intercourse will follow without any exception. There it cannot be said no to. It's just there before marriage taking place. It's assumed by everyone that after this happens, it's a very normal thing. There's no reason to say no for it. But I feel, be
yeah,
it the either of the spouse, not just it being a woman, anybody has the right to say no. Like consent is very, very important. So I just feel that this is something that's so engraved into people's mentality कि
yeah,
शादी हो गई तो सब कुछ ठीक है. So that is one of the
yeah.
very
She
big
is your
problems.
property.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
mentality that she is your property.
definitely. And I'd
Yeah,
done some research on this law, and I'd seen that this law basically it was made at a time when it was assumed that a woman is not an individual legal entity. Like she's merged with her husband's, you know, like they're merged entities. She's not alone. Everything, whatever happens to her, it's not something that just happens to her. It's like a joint thing. So I just feel that is another something that has contributed to this law, and this is something that is not true anymore. It has never ever been true, but you know things are changing now. If we are
Yeah.
evolving, our mindsets are becoming more open, and we're becoming more understanding and more sensitive of what is happening around us. So I feel that the law should also adapt along with it. What do you think about
Yeah, so
it?
see, since you mentioned the word no, so no is very, I could say, the most important part of the story, because no means no, right?
Yeah.
If you are forcing someone, if you are like brutaling someone, so that's against the law. In any case, either you take the example of murder, theft, rape, anything, no means exactly no,
Yeah.
right? So I was on the part that the girl, she is forced to keep quiet. She is forced to surrender herself, right? Because
Yeah.
the family members, the mother part, her family members and her husband parents, they force that girl to save her married life, basically. To save her married life. Don't come back to their parents' home. लोग क्या कहेंगे? Society क्या कहेगी? समाज क्या कहेगा? So all those stuff. So because of that, I could feel that maximum amount of women, they don't really speak up. And some who do speak up, then she has to face police station, where the interrogation is of that sort that that girl loses her morale. कि उसको क्या क्या फेस करना पड़ता है when she goes to police station, like the amount of questioning which they ask, like that's not a healthy questioning, because in this sensitive case the questioning should be very sensitive and very to the point, not taking into consideration the funny part or assuming it as something funny. Then when we come to the doctor part, when they go for all those scans and all those things, then there also the threatened part of the story comes in, where the husband, their family, they to threaten her, right, by various means. And you, firstly, you mentioned about what that female faces. So she doesn't only face physical harm,
Yeah.
but mentally,
Definitely.
psychologically, emotionally, she broke down. And I could say that the end point which every female must have faced in her life after this rape thing is suicide. Once in their life, they must have thought of that
Suicidal
idea.
thoughts do come in.
I should, yeah, suicidal thoughts. And that is the most dangerous part of the story. Sacrificing your life because you haven't done something. See the irony of the case. See, you haven't done something, then also you're sacrificing your life, right? And like these are all of the things which are there. But the main part of the story lies in that how to solve that and who will solve that.
Yeah.
Because problems है, we all know problems है, तभी बात कर रहे हैं. But उस problem का solution निकालना is the most important thing. Since I find गलत ख्वाब, गलत शहर, all of these people are joining in. So we all of the गलत, or not only गलत, but every individual knows what is the problem. अगर you are talking today about marital rape, so never the line in your life you must have known the thing कि yes, it is illegal. पता था ना आपको पहले से, before joining into गलत or before at least going into the college, you were knowing that yes, it's illegal. But उस illegal को legal करने के लिए क्या मैंने और आपने कुछ किया? नहीं किया. हम लोगों ने सिर्फ क्या करा? We just thought कि नहीं ये प्रॉब्लम्स है, बट उसका सॉल्यूशन कैसे आएगा, राइट? वी हैव थॉट, एंड इफ वी थॉट दैट पार्ट, देन वी जस्ट थॉट, वी डिडंट इम्प्लीमेंटेड इट, राइट?
No, I definitely feel what you're saying definitely makes sense, and I feel conversations like these are very important towards coming down to those solutions. Like it's very important that people know about it. Like I'm sure that a lot of people, लोगों को पता है कि you know something like marital rape does exist. But a lot of people might not know that, you know, the Indian constitution does not criminalize it. It does not punish people over it. Because it's something so basic to you and I that you would obviously think, you know, rape is the crime. There is no question about it. So we would never think that, we would never think that the law does not, you know, have the same viewpoint. So definitely I feel conversations like these this is definitely the first step towards coming down to a solution. Because if we talk more about, I completely feel that this topic is very underrepresented. In the sense, that not a lot of people talk about it. So I just feel like, if clubs like you and I start these conversations, we can definitely, with the help of the
Yeah.
required bodies, definitely come down to a solution. Now, while we were talking about the reasons, you spoke about how everybody says, log kya kahenge. So there's one point that I wanted to add to it, that there were a lot of conversations about like a lot of NGOs like raise their voice against this. Why isn't marital rape considered a crime in our in our law? So I think the government at the time, I'm not sure about which year this was, but the government at the time said that if marital rape is criminalized, then the institution of marriage, family will get broken. And it's like India is a country जहाँ पे family values को बहुत seriously लिया जाता है and in very high esteem. So इस ऐसी country में it's not possible to criminalize marital rape. This was their reasoning. So what I would like to counter this with is that what do you and I think family is? Family is like a safe space. Ideally, that is what family is. It's where you're loved and supported. If somebody is suffering from this, if somebody is being raped, do you think that that um, taking care of that is more important, or protecting family? What use is family if the person cannot come out and talk about their story, about what has happened to them? What is the use of that? So I just feel it's not an adequate justification because India is a country which takes family values very seriously. You can't criminalize marital rape. That is not the case. To save a marriage, you're completely ignoring the rights of the woman who's faced so much trauma, or anybody, not just the woman, anybody who's faced so much physical and mental trauma. You're completely ignoring their rights. And I feel, and another one point to this was that a lot of people said, and I think the government or some legal body, they said that one of the risks of making this a proper law, of saying that marital rape is a crime, is that this law will be misused. So I would like to say to that is that isn't it true for any law? Any law for that matter can be misused. It's the responsibility of the judiciary to find facts from what is false. What do you think about that?
Yeah, see, basically talking about the laws. So see, rape is rape, whether it is done by someone at the age of 10 years, someone at the age of 40 years, someone at the age of 90 years. Rape is rape. If that person who is a teenager, he is doing rape, so he is very much in his senses. He knows what is right and what is wrong. That is the case he is doing rape, right? Because doing rape is not a very kiddish thing or a childish thing. If he is
Not
doing
just
rape
that,
at
it's
the
like,
age of,
and
yeah,
not just that, I'm sure that the other party, be it the woman, she would clearly express that she does not want to take part in this. She'll
yeah,
say no. No is no. That is basic to all of us. Go on. Sorry, I
definitely.
interrupted you.
No, no, no issue, no issue. So my like the since the law part was, so in the Nirbhaya case we saw clearly that one of the culprit was teenager, right? He was
Yeah.
under 18.
Yeah.
So what did that child, that person, he was given relaxation. So my question was, why relaxation? He has done the same thing which the other person has done, irrespective of their ages. Right? If that person must have killed someone, so what would be that? He was in his senses, he was having the consent, having the intention, both of the things were clear in that case. The lawyers cleared all of this stuff, but because he was 18 minor, so that number justified him and that number saved him basically from the Kasi
That
ki
is
saza.
true. That is true.
Yeah. So that I feel that rape, if there is rape, it is proven that yes, rape हुआ है. तो जो भी कोई सामने हो, उसको सीधे 7 days के अंदर, it should be very strict. 7 days के अंदर फांसी होनी ही चाहिए. Right? It should be very strict. In the Nirbhaya case, we just saw 6 years and some months
Yeah.
took to get that girl justice. उनको justice लाने के लिए 6 years लगे. And दूसरी तरफ if I see the CAA and NRC, that violence, that arrogance, that hustle bustle in the country at that time of CAA and NRC, जहाँ पे पूरी I can say 60% of the country was standing on the road, destroying the public property in the country, right? अगर वो 60% लोग निर्भया के केस में when she was being raped, अगर उस 7 days में उतना प्रोसेस करा होता, तो आई बेट 7 days के अंदर अंदर सरकार को फांसी देनी पड़ती सारे विक्टिम्स को.
No, I feel
सारे कल्प्रिट को.
you definitely make sense that public dissent is very important in such cases. It's definitely very, very important, and that is something that, I feel that, will happen when conversations like these take place more often. And as you said, something like this is so basic, whether it's a minor or someone above the age of 18. I just feel that even though it is something very, very basic, not okay. Let's not even talk about rape. Generally, harming someone else to the extent, even after they tell you, that this,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there was a connection issue. I was saying, harming someone else is wrong, and that is something we're taught from our childhood. Not just referring to rape, generally, causing anybody else harm, physically or mentally, is wrong. And that is something that's ingrained in us, should be ingrained in us from the beginning. And even though this is something so basic, I feel sensitization about such issues is very important, not just at our homes, but our schools and wherever we learn as well. It should be incorporated into education as well. That it's doing harm to anyone else is wrong. Rape is wrong. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, you are saying absolutely correct. And adding on to that factor, like there are, I could say there are two phases of the constitution. Basically, I purely respect constitution, but in this regarding, when I went into depth, then what I find was section 375. It clearly states the age from 50, which was primarily 15. Now it goes to 18. And
Yes.
on the other hand, Article 14, it says equality, right?
Yes.
So where is equality? If I see equality in this aspect, so where is equality? You are considering rape, then you are considering marital rape under that. And in a marital rape, you are giving liberty to in the terms of age factor. So that is never the line, the symptoms of an equal or equality, right? And since not our constitution, but the first page of the constitution, which is the preamble, that too states equality of opportunity, status, and etc. Right. So there also we are having preamble, maybe first page we have equality in a very beautiful and bold word. But I find that those equality and these words are just being written in our preamble and constitution, and never the line have applied in our practical life by ourselves, by the other people, because I never blame anyone. I never blame the government. I never blame the organization or anyone. I blame myself. I blame each and every individual, because we as an youth, as an individual are there to bring the change. वो बुरे लोग नहीं लाएंगे चेंज, राइट? जो सत्ता में बैठे हुए हैं या पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज कर रहे हैं या दाढ़ी आ गई है, they won't bring change. Never. They won't think about that as well. They will just think about their age, कि मेरी एज इतनी हो गई है, इतने साल बचे हैं. They will start counting their age thing. We as a youth are there who are going to take care of this country, and जिसको कंट्री की जरूरत है, कंट्री को उसकी जरूरत है. Both the side of the game. Right. So it is we who are going to bring that change. And since you mentioned talks like this are very essential, then yes, talks like this are definitely very essential. But not only talk,
Definitely.
like quoting the
You should
not only
act on
quote, but after.
Yeah.
Yeah, after the talks and after the things, we should at least start from our home. Right? I won't say कि because this is an irony in our country that एक female को, एक woman को, एक girl को equality पाने के लिए किसी की माँ, किसी की बहन, किसी की बेटी, किसी की बीवी की नजर से देखना पड़ता है. हम उसको एक इंडिविजुअल फीमेल के नजरिए से नहीं इक्वालिटी देना चाह रहे हैं. हम क्या सुनते हैं हम लोग कि यार ये किसी की बहन हो सकती है, किसी की बीवी हो सकती है. डूड वो एक फीमेल है, इससे पहले उसके बाद जाके किसी की बहन, किसी की बेटी है. जब पैदा होती है फीमेल, तो उसे ये बोलते हैं कि आपके घर में बेटी जन्म हुई है. फीमेल बोला जाता है उसे. तो सबसे जरूरी ये है टू रिस्पेक्ट दैट इंडिविजुअल एज एन इंडिविजुअल. वो लड़की है इसलिए रिस्पेक्ट करो, ना कि वो किसी की बहन या किसी की बीवी, किसी की वो है तब करो रिस्पेक्ट. बिकॉज वहां पे चीजें बहुत ज्यादा आउट ऑफ द गेम हो जाती है, राइट?
That makes a lot of sense. And as you said in the beginning, you spoke about equality and Article 14. I think you spoke about Article 14, right? So yeah, I completely agree. Like, the law over here is dividing females, like, because they're referring to only females in their law, that they're dividing into married women and unmarried women. What happens after marriage that they require a separate law? Like, I didn't understand why, like, that's completely going against equality here. So that's something you
Yeah.
said which makes a lot of sense. And another one thing is that, I just feel ki, speaking about marital rape, one of the other reasons behind it is also that, marriage is glorified so much in the sense कि, लोगों को
Yeah.
बताया जाता है कि शादी के बाद ये कर सकते हो, तो कुछ भी कर सकते हो बेसिकली, मतलब किसी का कंसेंट भी ना हो तब भी कर सकते हो. So the fact that is glorified so much is also another thing that contributes to marital rape. So I feel that that is something that should be talked about and be acted upon, that marriage should not be glorified to this extent that you can do absolutely anything to your spouse without their explicit consent.
Consent.
True,
Hmm.
that is very true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
another,
And
yeah,
basically, yeah.
sorry, no, go on.
Continue, continue, continue. No, no, no issue. Continue,
No, no,
continue.
I was just talking about another very important topic, that is a female. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's called female genital mutilation. Are you aware of it? So basically, it's
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that's practiced in like a lot of countries and a lot of cultures, where they basically mutilate a female's genitalia for the purpose that it should be preserved until marriage. So these are the kind of things that I was referring to. They make no actual medical sense. I had googled it. It does nothing good for you, and yet these kinds of things are done to, supposedly keep a woman holy until her marriage. So I just feel, factors like these that, make a marriage and sexual intercourse after marriage such a big deal is what contributes towards marital rape in the end. What were you saying? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, no issue, no
Yeah.
issue. So my point was that the concept of these things, I feel that they should be told in our schools and our colleges,
Definitely.
right?
We need
The education
sensitization.
about that. Yeah, at least the basic education regarding what is period, what is menstrual hygiene, what is sex education. Because if you are not telling these students either in school nor in colleges, then they are going to Google it up and see the wrong way out of that thing, right?
Definitely.
Either give them the education, or they are going to see the bad side of the game, because Google has all of those things. So now the categorization is totally on the education system. Either they wanted to take it in a very systematical order and tell the children or students all of those things which they need to know at that point of time when they are there, right? If they are under the age of, I could say, from class 8 to class 12, so they should know at least what is period, what is sex education, and menstrual hygiene. These things I feel that they should know, because when I was in class 8, so there is a chapter known as
Yeah.
reproduction chapter.
Yes.
So that is never told in any school. I have talked about this in 100 plus sessions, and all of those have told me the single thing, that none of their schools have explained that chapter truthfully. They did justify the chapter. And many have told me that for that special one chapter, a female teacher was called for explaining that chapter.
There's so much
So see the
taboo around
irony.
this. There's so much taboo.
Yeah,
This is something so different that this is not something that can be normally spoken about. I just feel that, until this concept, it's such a normal concept. Sexual intercourse is so normal. But I just feel there's so much, stigma around it that it cannot be spoken about, or, it can't happen before marriage. All of these things just, contribute to making it such a mystical thing that, people just cannot fathom someone saying no to it after marriage. So definitely what you
yeah,
said about, sex education being introduced in schools, students being told about what is period, how to, about the entire concept, because a lot of, I've even read stories about a lot of girls being confused, them thinking there's something wrong with them when they were on their period, because it's something that they were never spoken to about. So that makes a lot of sense, that, as I said,
yeah.
sensitization is very, very important.
And because those things weren't told in their schools and colleges, and so in the homes as well, none of their parents, family members
Yeah.
talked about that openly, right?
Yes.
Either their moms or anyone, they don't really talked about that very openly, and
Yeah.
that is clearly, I could say, injustice to the fact that we are living in the world of equality. We are claiming to our country as an equality basis. We are claiming it as a democratic country, but I will find that democracy and the equality is just in the paper. Just a piece of paper is there, in there it is written, and that's it. And never will I, like, since you are from, I could say, Delhi University, Bhargi College, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Delhi University also, you must have known the fact about how basically girls are treated. Like I could say in Gargi only there was the case uh, in the fest.
Yes, February. Yes, in
Yeah,
February.
Gargi was their college,
Yep.
right? So you can see that what incidents happened over there.
Definitely.
Those were shameful. In the name of college, we are organizing a fest, a beautiful fest for all of the university people to gather around to get to know the culture of various colleges, because there we have competitions, we have other things. But there, what is happening? The ill practices, right? Because what I feel is there, the culture of different cities, the culture of different, I could say, states, they also categorize to these things, right?
Mhm.
And like in the local language, when a girl and a boy comes in a relationship, so the most, I could say, I feel very bad that words, they words really hit me hard when they say banda and bandi. So
Mhm.
there, those words, I feel that those words shouldn't be used. If you are well enough, well educated, claiming to be studying in prestigious universities like Delhi University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, or any university, so you should be having decency to at least respect your, I could say, your partner. If
Yeah.
you are not respecting your partner, so how can we expect you to respect someone else?
Mhm.
Right? Calling them bandi and these words, so these are very, I could say, bad words which we need not to use in our day-to-day life.
No, I just, yeah, your point definitely makes sense that we should treat our own counterparts respectfully. If we don't do that, how can we expect anyone to treat us respectfully? But that is true. Mm, Point being, everyone should be treated respectfully. So, yeah. So I just hope that, through these conversations, that happens more. And I hope that soon Girl Up can get back to its on-field work where it can actually contribute towards causes like these.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I just feel like, it was a very important conversation that we had today. And thank you so much for joining in. And I'm so glad that I could
No,
speak
thank
to
you
you.
very
And
much.
I think we covered
Yeah.
some very, very important issues. And
Important.
yeah,
Yeah.
and as I said, that this is like our last Instagram series for this month on our topic zero tolerance against sexual harassment and violence. And I would also like to tell you, as well as all our viewers and all the Girl Up clubs that have joined, that Girl Up Glow Gargi, in association with Ogilvy, is organizing a webinar on Saturday. And the topic of the webinar is role of citizens in combating rape. So I would encourage everyone, as well as you and your Girl Up Club, to join us
Yeah.
for this session. It will be a very interesting and a very helpful session for all of us, because it's going to teach us some very important things on how we as citizens can contribute towards combating rape. So I hope you join in. I hope everyone joins in. And
Definitely, we all will be there.
yeah, and I hope you had a good discussion over here. And thank you.
Definitely, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, and again, namaste.
Namaste.
Okay.